Did you know that you can use acrylic to protect your natural nails if you've just had a removal or if they've ripped off or you've had a bad removal? You can use a thin layer to protect those natural nails. Look how adorable. I'm Suzie. I want to share my experience of how we can protect your natural nails, and it's much easier than you might think. Let's get started. Remove the difficult from acrylic application with my slow curing odorless monomer. Available at nailcareer.com. Okay, I prepare my nails to be sort of in the same state that your nails might be in. Very little on, basically removed. Maybe even yours are completely naked whatsoever and you have no enhancements on there whatsoever. But I'm going to give them a slight buffing with the correct file. That's how I prepare my nails for any enhancement that I'm putting on. So you want to get yourself a good set of files. In this case, you want a coarse or a medium, and that's about a 100 or a 150 grit. And if you're using a 100, which is what this is, use it very gently. And I'm going to buff up each and every nail. As a nail technician, we're all about structure and building the right apex in the right spot and lengthening. But there's also another kind of nail we do besides long. I mean, I know the trend right now is quite long, but you know, if I look at my full body of clients that I've had over the years, 95%, maybe 98 are on the shorter side. They're not long. Now, long is becoming such a trend that people have said to me, you know, I want to get the enhancements done, but I don't want long nails. And I think that's interesting because that's the influence of social media, is that a lot of people think you have to have them long, but you can actually have them very short. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do them as short as I can possibly make fake nails. So I'm just buffing each and every one. And I will tell you, when you do this, if you're having any lifting or issue, even if you're not, make sure you get every little nook and cranny. I'm pushing back my cuticles at the same time. I'm making little circles and I'm pushing the cuticles back at the same time. And you can pre-push them back too. You can just take your thumb and go in like that. You can also use a wooden cuticle stick. Okay, so I've got my nails all buffed up. Okay, and I'm going to take a duster and I'm going to get rid of all the dust. Okay, and I'm going to take a prep and prime. I'm going to get a thing I can rest my fingers on. Okay, now the prep is something you can put on. It's like it is a dehydrator. You put on more generously. It's the first one you put on. And then I'm going to put the primer on. Mine is called Let's Bond. I put this on a little more gingerly. You don't want to oversaturate the nail with this. And when I begin, I usually begin with the bigger finger and then move over to the smaller ones. And then when I do the thumb, I sometimes will do an extra dip for it. And you don't have to put it in the acrylic part, just as a side note. Any fake nail part, you don't have to put it on there. Just put it on the natural nail. And if you hit the acrylic part, it's no big deal. Okay, so we are going to use a slow setting monomer, and the reason being is because if this is new to you or if you're not a professional at it, you want something a little bit slower setting so you can mold it around easier. And I'll show you how this stuff works. This stuff is brilliant because it'll do most of the work for you, and it doesn't smell. Okay, now the powder, just as a little side note, over the years, whenever I've done nails, I've always mixed, because we used to come in a cool pink. Our powders used to come in white, clear, the core powders, like the main ones that we use to build the nails. There's all sorts of colors, but that's getting into a whole new area. I would mix my cool pink and my warm pink together to create a mixture of the both to get more of a nude tone. And I'm going to do that with mine as well. So what I'm going to do is take my foundation pink, I got a little jar, and I'm going to take just a little bit of my pink tint and about equal amounts, maybe a little more, of Suzie's foundation pink. And then I'm just gonna mix them up together. Just give it a good mix. That's why we called it Suzie Mix in my salon. And it just gives it a really nice nude tone, because usually a pink, like a translucent pink, mine anyway, the pink tint is pink but it's very see-through. It's almost like a clear pink. And I like that because sometimes you want that look where it's rather see-through. And so you can see through to the natural nail bed, which can be pink, which is nice. And then foundation pink, I called it that because it's a coverage. And you want a full coverage, sometimes more opaque. You don't see through it because you don't want that coverage, especially when you're doing ombres, right? But when you combine the two, it just gives you a really nice mixture of the two, and it creates this very nude look, which I love. Okay, there we go. So that's what we're going to do. So the whole idea when you're doing nails is we're focusing on the cuticle, the apex, which is the centerpiece, and the free edge. Today, we're going to eliminate the free edge because we just want to put a coating not much different or much thicker than a coat of polish or gel polish, something very, very thin. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to soak my brush. Just prepare it. This is a synthetic brush. This is one of my new brushes. And I'm going to soak it. But when I gather my bead, because this is odorless, you need 3 times less monomer than you would if you're using a traditional, which is my fast setting monomer, or other traditionals. You don't need a lot of monomer, which it saves you money in the long run. But it also, because it's slow setting, you just don't need near as much. That's what causes the low odor, because it slowly evaporates. Okay, so what makes this different? We're not doing a free edge, so we're not putting on a form. So that eliminates the whole form situation for you. We have a nice smaller brush, not a giant brush. We're not going to do this in one bead. So that'll make it a lot easier. We're not going to build it with a huge apex, if much at all. We are just doing, like simulating a coat of nail polish on your nails just to give it strength. Now, if we do the same thing with nail polish, it's just not strong. Acrylic is super strong. That's why even a thin layer of acrylic will protect your natural nails. So I just want to show you this because you might think you have to learn all those skills like building and stuff. You don't. The only thing you want to pay attention to is the cuticle. And with the odorless monomer, it makes the cuticle so much easier. It makes your bead so much easier to create. So I've got a lot of monomer in my brush. See how I'm tapping it in the side of my dish? I'm releasing product out of the side of my brush. Quite a bit, right? And then I'm going to lay it in the powder. I'm just going to lay in one spot. I'm not going to bounce. I'm not going to drag. I'm not going to swirl or anything. And I've created the bead. Then I'm going to take the bead and I'm going to pop it on and I'm going to release my brush. Then I'm going to take a little pad and I'm going to clean any remnant of acrylic out of my brush. Just like that. I'm just going to swipe it. Now I'm going to go back to the bead. And see how it's dissolving into itself? You hold into the powder for about, 4 to 6 seconds, depending on the temperature where you are. And then you let it rest on your nail. See that? How it falls into place ever so slowly? It's just absorbing into itself. And now I'm just going to lightly, like a feather touch, I'm just lightly pulling it onto my nail. See that? It basically fell. If you get the right size bead, which is very, very small, then it's way easier to manage. So because we're not building the apex, we don't need any height, we're not building, we don't have to worry about that. We're just trying to put a thin layer on top. And then by the time we're sculpting and stuff, we can smooth it all over and boom, before you know it, you got a nail. Obviously it's not close to the cuticle, so we need now another little small bead. See, I'm just gonna dip the very end of my brush on the very, very side of the dish. And I'm still going to release. And I'm gonna hold in here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at that teeny weeny little bead. I'm gonna place that bead right at the edge of where I did that last bead, where I feathered it out. I'm gonna let it sit. I'm gonna clean my brush. 3, 4, 5, 6. Let it sit for 6 seconds. It's just absorbing into itself. If it's running, take it off and start again, because that means you have way too much monomer. Now I'm just going to slightly, with the very end of my brush, I'm just going to sort of coax it toward the cuticle a little bit. Oh my goodness, I can't express how small this is. And now I'm just taking the very end of my clean brush and I'm just feathering it out. Not much different than if you were painting this with a gel polish or a nail polish. Now nail polish, you have less opportunity to do this because it's drying as you do it. Now that's the beauty of odorless. It dries so slow, you have a lot of time to feather it out. That's the thing. If this was a traditional monomer, it would have hardened by this point, and I wouldn't be able to sculpt it or manipulate it anymore. So we did that in 2 beads, and we're almost done. Okay, let's turn it sideways. Do you see that? Look how little we put on there. You can see this. Let's take a look at this one so you can see for sure. See that sideways view? I'm just following the lines of my natural nail. So it's shallower here, thinner here, and as you approach the center, it's a little bit higher, and then it slopes off at the free edge. I'm not building, I'm not adding any height as far as the apex go. I'm just putting a thin layer over the top of the whole thing. That's it. And then we will buff it all out together and smooth it to make it look nice and smooth. Okay, so again, I'm going to do the bead on the very end. Now you can do this in 1 bead, but most likely if you're doing this yourself, you may not have the skills to do that. And the 1 bead is really more for experienced people who are doing the 1 bead method. And you can do that, and that's a style, but it's not something that you can, like, I don't want you to think that you have to do that when you're doing nails, because that is not part of the equation. And for those who can't do a 1 bead, that doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm just going to do the very edge of my brush once again, and I release, and I'm holding in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got that bead. I'm going to place it on the end, right? Because I just want to give the end some strength. I'm going to wait 6 seconds. See how it's just moving, but it's not falling, it's not running. And then I'm going to press out the bead. Go right from side to side, because you do want that strength. We're here to try to strengthen that natural nail, and we want to cover your whole nail with acrylic. You can do this technique with hybrid gel, hard gel. You can do it with nail polish if you want, but nail polish is not going to give you the strength that you're looking for. Acrylic out of all of them is the strongest. So with a skilled artist with acrylic, you have the strongest nail. But you're better off with a skilled gel artist if they don't know how to do acrylic. You're better off with the gel with a skilled artist than acrylic with someone who doesn't know how to build it, if that makes sense. Okay, so that nail is done. So now we didn't build any apex, and the free edge is on there, but we'll thin that out a little bit. We didn't add a free edge. We just focused on the cuticle and made sure that we were spreading it out over top of the entire nail, covering your whole natural nail, giving it strength. And it's still the same shape and length as it was, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest. Okay, now I've got them all on. I'm just going to let them cure. Now, one thing with odorless, it has a dispersion layer that comes to the top. So you can either file that off, give it about 2 minutes to dry, totally, or you can run it under warm water and it will set, and then you can directly file. It's no big deal. It is cured. You just have to run it under warm water to get rid of that dispersion layer. Okay, now I'm going to file them up. I'm going to run them under water, and then I'm going to file them up. And I'll show you how easy that is. Okay, we're just going to go back to that coarse file again. Now, we're not really taking away too much. We're following the lines of your natural nail because we're not really building an apex. We just want to make it thinner near the cuticle and smooth overall. Now, when you're building acrylic, it can get lumpy and bumpy. I call them turtles. When you're building them like higher apex and length, you can really get into some nasty little turtles, but that's okay. That's expected when you're learning. But when you're shorter, it can be less of those issues and there's not much of an apex. So we're just going to follow the lines of your natural nail and we are just going to buff all over. Now, filing can be a little hard to show you because my whole hand is going over top and it's a little harder, but you see the area that I just hit there? You can see it's a bit wider. I'm just going to sort of go over top of the whole area. Now, when I go, I'm going like this. I'm moving my file like over like a barrel, you might say, and I'm treating that to my nail the same way. I'm just sort of filing it smooth over and over. And the reason why I cover a big area is because I don't want to do little areas like that. Now you can. If you find a little extra bumpy spot, then certainly go like that. But be careful, because with a coarse file, you could take away a fair bit. So if you just kind of go over top of the whole thing, my idea is if you've got lumps and bumps like this, let's say this is part of my nail surface and one's higher on one side like this. But if you hit the file and go over like this, you will take away the high points and eventually file away the high points to meet the low points. And then you have a smoother nail rather than targeting a specific little bumpy part. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do here is I'm sort of going back and forth over the whole thing evenly. And if you just keep doing that, you can even see that you'll hit the high spots and you'll see the white spots, like the whiteness go on it. And then as you keep doing it, it'll even out. And eventually you just are filing a nice smooth nail. Okay. Now you can take the little round ends. See these round ends? That's why I love having the round end on one side, and then you can go like this into the cuticle area, and you can take the side and separate that cuticle area. You can even find your little finger and sort of push the cuticle back a little bit, and you want to go like this, and you can just gently get in between. Same with down the side, and you can see this square edge and get into one little corner like that. Okay. Now, because we're not shortening, because my natural nails were a short length and I'm just going as short as my natural nails are, I'm just going to shape them on the end. And that is just picking the shape that I want. And it's acrylic. You can go back and forth, no problem. These were natural nails. You just want to go one way, but because it's acrylic, you can go back and forth. So I'm just going to shape up the edge. I'll just do one nail complete, and then I'll do the other ones real quick. So right now I'm just making them nice and round. Okay, so then see how much I'm just smoothing it out and just kind of go over the whole thing and just sort of smoothing it out. Now I will look down the end and see if it's lopsided. So look down the barrel of it and see if one side's lopsided than the other. And then you can sort of focus on that one side and you can get rid of it. And this looks pretty good. So you're just evening it out. You don't have to worry about anything else. So you're just getting a nice thin coat over top of your natural nail to strengthen that natural nail, keep it protected. And because if your nails hurt from a bad removal, this will make it feel so much better. Okay, that's looking really good. So I'm just going to give it the look over once down the end of the nail. Now this is all with the coarse. Coarse file is to take away product, okay? And then I'm gonna move to the medium and then the fine for the free edge and then the spongy one. And I'm using gel, so I'm gonna leave it a bit rough on the end. So I'm gonna use the medium.
So if you finish with polish, you can use a fine file and get it smoother?
Yes.
But gel wants a little bit of grit to grip onto?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I don't really have to use the medium here because I am going to put polish on. But I do use the medium to smooth out that free edge and then finish it with the fine, just nice and smooth, because you want that edge to be really smooth. And then this won't change the shape. This is very spongy. It'll wrap around your finger, but it has a nice finish on the rougher side so that gel polish will stick. If I'm not using gel polish, I'll go over it with the medium and then the fine, and then I have my smooth and shine in here, just the green side if you want. And the white side makes it like shiny, like you put polish on, but you don't need that if you're going to put polish on it. Okay, so this guy is ready for gel polish. Okay, so I'll go ahead and finish up the rest, and then I'm going to polish them, and then we'll check out the reveal. Look how natural they look. And then if you look down the barrel of it, you can see how thin they are. They're very, very natural. Adorbs, as my niece Brie would say. If you want to check out a video where you do want to lengthen them without doing the structure, without using a lamp, no sculpting, no shaping, check out this video where I adhere them with acrylic. Yes, it can be done. Check it out.